What's up, everybody? It's Pass the Rock post draft party. Yes, Zach and Jesse and I were at the draft in Detroit. We have thoughts coming up next. It's Pass the Rock.
Hey yo, could one of y'all pass the gosh darn rock? Hey yo, I'm trying, I ain't lying, and hosting this will be Brian.
Yeah.
Posting like Kobe Bryant,
Yeah.
flying to see the pie.
Yeah.
Hit the hezzy, we got Jesse, opinions get kinda messy. A fan of out of lefties, from football to racing jackies. He goes silly when he go deep, sheesh, is Zach Zeman. Teaming up with Jack, we stack the whole team, man. Pass the rock, don't stop the shot clock.
Woo.
Smack the slap shot, come on, now let's talk. Pass the, yo, partner, pass the rock. For real.
All right, we got to attend the highest attended draft in the history of the NFL. 750,000 people went either Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. So, Zach, describe the experience for us.
I mean, what else can you say but one of a kind? I mean, it was something that I feel like is something that every NFL fan is like, man, I wish I could do that. I wish I could go to the draft, see my team pick a player. To be able to say that I've done that is just phenomenal. It was a great experience in Detroit. The NFL draft experience, besides the draft, that was also a really good time. Seeing all the cool little things they had for fans to do. Got a lot of cool photos, saw a lot of cool things. Overall, a great time.
Jesse, would you have more fun watching the draft at home, or did you have more fun watching the first round in the crowd full of fans from every team?
I loved watching my team's pick from the full crowd because it was third overall and I could get out of there in 20, 30 minutes if so. But I think staying for the whole draft is sicko activity. It's a lot of standing and it's a long, long day. Not a lot of bathrooms or food options around either. So NFL, do better next time for that. But it was an amazing time. I was not a big fan of the Drake May pick when it happened. But ever since, the kid's grown on me, and we've got nothing but time now with the Patriots. So I'm feeling better as a Pats fan coming out of this draft for sure. And it was an awesome time being there. I think everybody should experience it at least once in their life.
Yeah, with Drake May leading your team, you probably will have the number 3 overall pick for several years to come. So enjoy that.
I'd rather that than just be 9-8 every year. So.
We can argue about that later. I agree that. So my team picked 14th, sitting there it was a little egregious how long it actually takes when you're not listening to analysis by the talking heads on ESPN or NFL Network or whatever. And they have this like wedding cover band that's playing in between each pick. And it's an amazing, weird experience. I'm glad I did it once. And look, it's perfect because it's free. So if you can get there, I think it's worth doing it, at least once in your life. But a little bit of an odd situation. I would have rather them just be playing the NFL Network coverage just so I can see, who are these guys? What do we need to learn about them? But hopefully next year, Jack can join us. Jack, any thoughts of missing out right now?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like I missed out. But, next year it's in Green Bay. So that's just a short drive up from Madison for me. So, I'll definitely be there. And hopefully you guys will be there with me. It'll be a great time.
Yeah, assuming you're not in, Spain or Zimbabwe or wherever you go next. So.
Ryan, on the NFL draft, it's funny you say that because instead of getting the post-pick analysis and learning anything about these guys, we had Scott Van Pelt on the sacks the whole time. And he was going crazy. Which was funny. Normally we would be hearing anything about, okay, who is this guy? What do they have to do? It was like, nope, back to the Miley Cyrus cover. Here we go.
Exactly. No, what's amazing about this, I follow an account on X that is like, is this Scott Van Pelt? And it's usually people that are somewhat Scott Van Pelt, but not quite. That guy was an exact, I actually thought it was him, just bailing on the saxophone. But you're right. It was a lot of weird covers, Miley Cyrus, and then they'd hit Prince, and then they'd go back and
Ain't
forth.
No Mountain High Enough, followed by Party in the USA. It was just not.
I was expecting Goodell to come out and play a couple guitar riffs, but with the way they were booing him, it's amazing. I know why Saints fans boo him. I have no idea why everybody boos him, but it's a thing now.
It's just the thing to do. You boo the commissioner. I mean, I don't think
Adam Silver's not getting booed off stage. I'm just saying.
No, because Adam Silver is actually a decent commissioner. Roger Goodell is not.
That's what I want to know. What is your beef with him? I know this, he ruined an entire season for the Saints after Bountygate. And I'm sure Jesse has his issues with all of the Deflategate and other gates relative to the Patriots. But why does the random NFL fan hate Roger Goodell?
I feel like one thing that people would rag on Goodell for in general is thinking back to Tom Brady's Deflategate. He got a very small suspension for that. So I feel like there are some fans who maybe still hold on to things like that that are like, okay,
that was fine.
I'm just saying in general, there are little things that Goodell does, whether it's for the league or for your team, that might make you a little upset. Like everyone has a small reason to boo Roger Goodell.
I do not have a problem with Roger Goodell. I don't know why. I don't know where all the hate comes from. I don't really have an issue with him. Now, I understand having beef with commissioners. I think Rob Manfred is one of the worst human beings to ever walk this earth. But Roger Goodell, to me, has never done anything wrong. Like I don't. I think the booing is honestly just like it's become tradition at this point.
Well, I guess based on what Zach said, everybody hates him for Deflategate because the Patriots fans hate that he, did any sort of suspension. Everybody else doesn't think it's long enough. So, all right, let's move over to the NBA. We'll come back to some NFL draft thoughts in a little bit, but let's talk about the NBA. The offseason is looming for several teams, so we want to know what's next. So, starting with you, Jack, the Phoenix Suns got swept by the Minnesota Timberwolves. What's next for the Phoenix Suns?
I mean, they're really just in such a brutal spot right now because of the situation they put themselves in with the Bradley Beal trade, where they don't have very many picks and they have 3 guys on max contracts. And with the new CBA rules coming in, there's not a lot of ways that they can maneuver out of that because no one really wants to take on a Bradley Beal. And obviously, you don't want to get rid of Devin Booker. You don't want to get rid of Kevin Durant. But the only way to really improve this team would have to be to deconstruct. And they're in a spot right now where that is something that is very difficult to do. So I honestly, it's a difficult situation to navigate. I'm not sure what they're going to do, but I think this is one way or another the last that we've seen of the Beal Booker KD big three, because I don't know how they run this team out there again and expect different results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The biggest problem with the Suns, they have no draft picks to help facilitate getting people out. They can't get rid of Beal because he makes way too much money and nobody's going to want to take that on. Their best chances, my opinion, is to get rid of KD or get rid of Booker, and try to, get a few picks back, sacrifice a year or two. The Bradley Beal trade has proven to be the worst part of all this, but willing to hear some other thoughts. Zach, from you.
Yeah. What sucks about the entire ordeal with the Suns' big three now is that getting rid of Mikal Bridges has become the worst mistake that this franchise has made in recent memory. I mean, he would really complement this team with how, with their depth, with just how their rotation works. I feel like if you still have Bridges, this team doesn't go out the way that they did. They're not getting swept. You could argue they'd even win their first round matchup in like 6 or 7 games. Like they would be favored with Mikal Bridges, but getting rid of him has led to this timeline where, now you're stuck with the bloated contract of Bradley Beal. You don't have a lot of depth anyways. You don't have a lot of draft picks to build with. And now you're kind of screwed. You got to figure out what you're going to do this offseason. So the Suns did this to themselves. They put themselves in this precarious situation. It's going to be really interesting to see how they respond to this first round sweep in the upcoming offseason.
Yeah, I think so. I have some ideas for the Phoenix Suns later when we talk about what the New Orleans Pelicans should do. Jesse, any final thoughts on the Suns before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you have Devin Booker, who is your franchise player, scoring 49 points in an elimination game, and you're still getting swept, just screams that you have to blow it up. I mean, obviously it's not working when your best player has his best game of the playoffs, and it's still not even close to enough. I mean, him and KD combined for 82 points, and they still, the rest of the team probably combined for 10. So there's just nothing outside of those two. I mean, losing Grayson Allen was the difference between them losing in 4 and 5. I think that they might have got one game with some points from him. He was the best 3-point shooter in the league this year. but you have to. I don't think the Bradley Beal thing from day one was a mistake. It's probably the worst contract in the league right now, besides maybe Chris Paul or any other guys just taking that huge of a cap hit. So, I mean, it's tough when he's on the books for $47 million. I mean, there's just no way that you run these three out here. And I'm honestly more surprised than anything that all three of them were actually healthy for the playoffs. Like all three of them played all 4 games. We didn't have a Milwaukee situation where Giannis and then now Dame is sitting out. So it's just funny that they were all healthy and it still wasn't even close to enough. So that just goes to show you that it's not going to work. You don't have any excuses. You don't have any, and it's honestly good that they were healthy because now you're not blinded by, oh, well, maybe if we were full strength, we could have done it. It's not going to work. We saw it from the jump, and yeah, that's it for the Suns. They should just sell Beal, Booker, Durant, as many of them for as much as possible tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, owner Matt Ishbia, when he first came in, he's like, I need to make a splash. He goes and gets Durant, and then he was kind of forced to be all in. And when we say all in, I don't know when their next draft pick is. I don't think it's until like 28 or 27, something like that. It's something ridiculous. So, yeah, they have a long road ahead of them, and they're probably going to have to be sellers well before.
Oh my God, they have a second round pick this year from San Antonio, projected anywhere late in the second, and then a second rounder in 2028. That's their next pick.
Jeez.
So then 2029 is their next first round pick?
I don't even know.
That's probably not even like a tradable.
This doesn't even show their next first round pick.
Oh my God. Yeah. So yeah. So they have a lot of work to do. They're probably, you're either going to have to double down and just hope a new coach or some sort of new thinking can get this team to work, that you can get something out of Bradley Beal. But we'll talk a little bit more later about the big 3 fail that this is and going forward. So let's move on. Offseason looming. What's next? Milwaukee Bucks edition. So the Milwaukee Bucks are not eliminated yet, but it could happen as early as tonight. Kind of a crazy game the other night when Indiana finally beat them to go up 3-1. Obviously, they have the excuses, Jesse, that you were talking about before that Phoenix didn't, that, they're dealing with injuries. They had Dame and Giannis out the last game. So where do the Bucks go from here?
It's tough. I mean, it's kind of crazy just that Giannis, it seems like it wasn't as big of a deal maybe as some of the other news going on in the NBA. I mean, he played like almost 75 games this season. He was barely out like at all. Really consistent, had a great year, kind of just as he always does, 30, 10, and 5 on great efficiency. And then at the very, very end of the season, it's just like this kind of not freak injury, but just kind of comes out of nowhere. And, this Bucks season has kind of been cursed from the jump. I mean, you fire your coach when you're 31-10 at the All-Star break, basically limp into the playoffs. And now you have Doc Rivers down 3-1 against the Indiana Pacers. And I mean, they choked away game 2 or game 3. That was very, very close. And it's just, it sucks to see for the Bucks. I personally was very, very high on them at the start of the season. I thought that they could go all the way to the Eastern Conference Final and contend with Boston, give them a run for their money. I think Dame is proven to be one of the best playoff performers in the league right now still. And I think that this team has what it takes to win. It's just been kind of a cursed season. So I wouldn't be surprised if they run it back with a pretty similar roster. They could make a few moves, maybe change up the forward depth with Connaughton, Malik Beasley. It's time to move on from those guys. But I really think that this team still has enough to win. I don't expect them to make any major changes. We'll see if they bring back Doc Rivers for the whole season next season or what goes on with that. But I don't know if he is currently signed to like a multi-year deal or anything. I don't know what his actual contract is, but I think this team has what it takes to win. I mean, they won 3 years ago, and now you have Dame on the team as well. Mm-hmm. I still think Giannis is a top 3 player in the league, and they don't have to do too much overthinking on this team. I think it just was a lot of unlucky things that happened this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, my only major issue with the plan bringing Dame in was your defense out front. He's not. This is a guy that is not known for his defense at all. And so when you get to playoff basketball, you need those stops. Now, granted, they didn't really get to test it because you have the insurance policy that is Giannis in the paint. But I think that was the issue from the jump. And look, they still ended up the 3 seed. They could have ended up the 2 seed. Probably would have been if Giannis had stayed healthy those last few games. So Go over to you, Zach. If you're the GM of the Milwaukee Bucks, what are you doing this offseason?
If I'm the GM of the Milwaukee Bucks, I don't think there's really a lot wrong with their roster. To me, I'm firing Doc Rivers yesterday. And honestly, I think that the Bucks season ended as soon as they hired Doc Rivers. That was the move to me that really took them out of championship contention. Look, Doc Rivers has a General Sherman-esque reputation of burning every single team that he comes across, whether it was the Orlando Magic, the Los Angeles Clippers, the Philadelphia 76ers, and now the Milwaukee Bucks. As soon as Doc Rivers becomes in charge of a team, he destroys their odds of success. And we've seen it time and time and time again at this point. I don't know why this man still has a job. I don't know why the Milwaukee Bucks even considered hiring him. And I think that's the biggest move you can make. I mean, you have a championship level roster that you have constructed the correct way. You're not pouring too much money into 3 guys. You're pouring a lot of money into 2 guys who are supposed to be your top stars. But when you have a coach who can't coach offense and can't coach defense to save his life, that's the main issue with the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't think they need a roster overhaul. I don't think they need to do too much. You just have the worst coach in the NBA suppressing this team.
I think that's a little extreme, but I'll let Jack respond to that. Or
I honestly, I don't think it's that extreme. I really don't. I believe in my heart that Dame and Giannis can work. I when they made the trade, I'm like, this is a duo that makes sense theoretically. You've got Giannis's defense to support wherever Dame lacks defensively. You do need to pair a better defensive guard in the backcourt with Dame. Malik Beasley can't work. But I think that's a tweak that they can make.
Pat Bev. That's what Pat Bev is for.
Right. I mean, theoretically, you need someone that can not be zero offensively. So I think that's a tweak they can make this offseason. But I don't think that the blow-up button is the answer. I think you can make Dame and Giannis work absolutely to build a championship team. I think Doc Rivers is the problem. I really do. This team, Adrian Griffin was not a good coach. Don't get me wrong. I know they were 31-10. They had a lot of flaws with him at the helm. I don't know that firing him was the right move, but certainly bringing in Doc to replace him was the wrong move. That is abundantly clear at this point. And I don't know how you keep him going into next season. I don't think there's any way you can justify that if you're Milwaukee. And I think if you get a coach in here with the full offseason, preferably a guy with some experience, considering the way that Adrian Griffin went, but certainly not Doc Rivers. And I think you can win a championship with Dame and Giannis, and I would not hit the panic button on that.
I totally disagree. I don't think Dame's a player you can win a championship with. No offense to him. I truly respect him as an all-star, as a great player. I just don't – I mean, he's proven to you that he doesn't have that championship pedigree. You have to play defense. It's the same issue I have with Luka. And Luka plays defense 10 times better than Dame. So to me, if you gave me a question, who's more to blame, Dame or Doc Rivers? I'm blaming Dame.
Did you watch any of the Bucks games?
No.
Yeah.
He was
He
the
does
only
not
thing
play
that kept-
on-ball
The only
defense.
reason he was in
Okay,
it.
but yes, not defense, but he's the only thing keeping their offense alive at all.
Correct. I'm not arguing with the offensive side. I'm saying it's not getting them to – I don't think that Dame and Giannis as a group, just those two,
Yeah.
are getting that team to the championship, especially with Boston, obviously still in their conference.
I would say from this conversation, my takeaway from the Bucks is it would be easier to replace Dame's offense than Drew Holiday's defense. And Drew Holiday was the life of that defense at the point. I mean, in that entire finals, he was clamping up Devin Booker the whole way. And that was the highlight of the series, was him stealing the ball from Devin Booker and throwing the lob to Giannis. You know, Dame's not doing that. Dame can hit a deep three, but he's not getting a clutch stop on the other end. And honestly, I think missing Drew Holiday has been the biggest thing. And that's why the Celtics have been so good. But I agree. Was interesting to look at the free agents upcoming this year. There's really not a lot. I mean, outside of the very, very top guys of like Harden, Tobias Harris, Clay, Gordon Hayward, DeMar, there's a lot of good scoring guards, but not a lot of good defensive guards. So it's going to be interesting to see where Milwaukee goes with that. Maybe they poach somebody. Maybe they get Klay Thompson. Who knows?
All right, let's move on, and I'm gonna start this one with Jack, and Zach, you're just gonna go last. Philly 76ers. So season's almost over. What's next, Jack? Starting with you.
Honestly, if it's me, I'm running it back. I think the Sixers looked really good this regular season before the Joel Embiid injury. They were one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. Tyrese Maxey had a complete breakout when Embiid was on the floor. And when Embiid got hurt, Maxey's game dropped off a bit, which is not ideal. But, I mean, again, you're in theory having a healthy season of Joel Embiid. And they haven't really recovered since Embiid has come back. Now, they are better. They have been competitive in some of these games for the Knicks. Obviously, they took one of them. But I think that what we saw for the most of the season while Joel Embiid was healthy is a team that can compete for a championship. And I really do believe that, especially in the Eastern Conference right now, where, of course, you have the Celtics as the dominant force. But other than that, it's a pretty open area for who's that second best team. I think a healthy Sixers team can be that second best team. To me, I don't think there's any reason to justify blowing it up. I think Nick Nurse did a solid job in his first year as head coach. I would not think about moving on from him. And yeah, maybe you make some minor tweaks to the roster and free agency, but I'm not in the position if there should be any major overhaul with Philly right now.
I totally agree. I think they're one role player or two and some health from being right there. I think they've been really competitive with the Knicks. Like that game yesterday could have gone either way. And some of the other games in the series could have gone that way too. So they got the bad draw because they had to play the Knicks. But I think they've been super competitive and probably the scariest, underdog team, lower seeded team, maybe other than the Mavericks, in the playoffs so far. Jesse.
I just want to give a shout out to Colo in the chat for subscribing 10 months in a row. We appreciate the sub. Thank you very much. So I completely disagree. I think that the Sixers, yes, they are right there, but I think we could see a big overhaul of this roster, mainly because looking at the top free agents of this season, 6 of them are 76ers. Kyle Lowry, Buddy Hield, DeAnthony Melton, Tobias Harris, Robert Covington, Nick Batum, all of which are free agents right now. So I don't know how you can re-sign all of those guys. I really don't. Tobias Harris, by the way, should have been arrested for highway robbery like 3 years ago. I mean, we talk about Bradley Beal. Tobias Harris is probably the worst contract in the NBA. I mean, $36 million for 8 points a game is just outrageous.
At least he plays.
And he should be on the America's Most Wanted list, and I'm sure he is in Philly right now. So it's crazy to me that he's getting that much money, and I think that we're going to see a deep cut into a lot of these guys. I feel like they should keep Buddy Hield. I think that he's played well since he came in, and he's always a great shooter to space the floor. Me personally, I'd keep Kyle Lowry because he's a hometown guy, and he's just the type of guy that you want leading the defense. And maybe he comes back for cheaper, but I mean, he's retiring a Raptor anyway. You got to keep Nick Batum after what he's done for that city. I mean, Nick Batum, that's why he's in, and he's the GOAT. But I think that we could see a lot of changes in some of those role players. Tyrese Maxey and Embiid, you got to feel good about that. Pretty much as good as anybody about your 1-2 punch in those two. And then between the point guard and the center, you just got to fill those kind of guard forward spots with some new pieces and some new energy, maybe some younger pieces. And I think that they'll be right back there. I mean, this could be a 3-1 Sixers lead right now if that Maxey foul gets called in game 2 and Brunson doesn't have 47 out of the 97 points last night. So I think Philly, I don't feel any sorrow for you guys, but you'll be right back.
All right, so everybody's given their path, and then we'll go to Zach, the expert on the 76ers, to tell us what will actually happen.
So what I think will actually happen, first and foremost, I think the only 2 guys that the Sixers are going to really try to bring back are DeAnthony Melton and, of course, Nick Batum. Nick Batum, of course, having a great second half of the season with the Sixers. And then Melton's been very solid for the Sixers. I've always liked him, especially in our starting lineup, alongside Maxey in the backcourt. I would love to see them brought back. I think those are the 2 guys that I really want back. Everyone else is kind of like, I think we can find replacement level players to replicate what they did. And then, yes, that includes Buddy Hield, who had a few great games, but I mean, he hasn't really done a whole lot in the playoffs. He didn't even play in the last game for the playoffs, which is kind of strange to think about, but he didn't. But the issue with the Sixers is that with the current core they have now, especially Tobias Harris is holding them back, obviously, but with that Embiid Maxey core, I'm not fully convinced it's enough to be able to put us over the top and into true championship contention. I don't think they're going to be able to land either of the top 2 free agents this year. I think Paul George is going to re-sign with the Clippers, and of course LeBron's going to re-sign with the Lakers. I feel like that's going to happen. In the off chance that neither of them do that, give them a blank check, obviously, and just see what happens. But I feel like you're kind of forced to run it back, with this core minus Tobias Harris. You don't really have a lot of options unless Paul George suddenly declines his player option, which I think is a little more likely than people think based on, recent press conferences and his attitude, what he's been, the attitude he's taken towards his contract talks in press conferences. So if that doesn't happen, maybe you look at a guy like DeMar DeRozan. But even then, I don't love DeMar DeRozan that much.
Nah, F that. You guys can't have Lowry and DeRozan on the Sixers. That's not. That's
no. I'm saying
that's
Lowry. We're not paying Lowry like $20 million a year. We're not doing
I don't
that.
care. DeMar DeRozan's not wearing a Sixers jersey. I will do everything in my power to prevent that from happening. I don't care what. But
I just know that
very little. Let's remember.
I just know that there's been a little bit of buzz. I just remember during the season when it was rumored that the Bulls were going to blow it up, there was a little bit of talk about LaVine and DeRozan potentially being traded to Philly. So I don't think it's impossible. It's tough. It's a weird situation. If it was a stronger free agency class, I think there'd be a more clear-cut path for the Sixers. But kind of like what Jack said, they're going to run it back, but it's going to look different. Tobias Harris, please, for the love of God, he shouldn't be here any longer. He should walk. Just re-sign a few of those free agents and find replacement level players. Run it back.
I will say, though, in a world where Paul George declines his player option, which I think is a realistic world, I could totally see him in Philly. I could totally see it.
Yeah, and to me, that's like, if it happens, of course, that's plan A. Plan A is if Paul George declines his player option, give him a blank check and sign him for a couple of years, and that would be maximizing Embiid's window. If that doesn't happen, then you just kind of have to run it back.
All right. Following the same rules, moving on to the New Orleans Pelicans, I will go last and tell you the real answers. But Zach, let's start with you. What's your plan for New Orleans Pelicans looking forward? What's next?
Oof. Putting me right on the spot with the Pelicans. It feels like you guys have a great core. You just get unlucky with injuries from time to time, especially with Zion being out for this playoffs. I feel like you just run it back. I don't know. Maybe you get like a few different role players, but you have a great core. You have great depth right now. Your roster is full from top to bottom. I don't see much room to really need to do anything, but Brian, you're the Pelicans expert, so you'll let us know what they're actually going to do. If Zion was playing, I think this would be a much more compelling series right now. Like, I see no need to really change things up right now unless there's an expiring contract or two that I just don't know about. Besides Jonas Valanciunas leaving, there are some good centers on the market, like decent level centers. For instance, Nick Claxton's going to get a bag. I think he's actually a very good center. He's a bit underrated.
Top center free agent in the offseason this year. I think he's like the best signing.
Nick Claxton is going to get a bag from somewhere. I think the Pelicans should definitely take a look at him to replace Valanciunas. I love what he has done with the Brooklyn Nets, and I think he's going to leave the Brooklyn Nets if that wasn't already obvious enough with how they've done this year. Other than that, there's not much I'd really change about the Pelicans right now, at least in my opinion.
All right, Jack.
I agree with a lot of what you said, but I don't know. I kind of feel like there might be a big move to be made with this team because you are right. This is a really solid team, and barring a freak Zion injury, which unfortunately tends to happen a lot, but had he been healthy for this playoff run, this would have been a much more competitive team and a much more competitive series. But even if you get a fully healthy year of Zion and you get Zion in the playoffs, like, what is this team's ceiling? Is it the second round, maybe the conference finals if you're lucky? Like, I don't think this is a championship team, even with another year of development and cohesion. So what is the move to be made? Is it – I don't know. Obviously, the Pelicans are not going to be a marquee free agent destination because they never are. But should there be a superstar that comes up in the trade market, like we were talking about with Phoenix, whether it's KD or it's Booker or even Beal, but I don't think Beal would be that appealing to the Pelicans. But should it be KD or Booker? I think they would be really in on that, and maybe that includes Brandon Ingram and that includes a lot of draft capital they do have from the Anthony Davis trade still, and their own draft capital and other moves they've made. So I don't know.
And the Drew Holiday trade.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like, I don't know what the exact move is, but I feel like if there is a superstar on the trade market, there is a solid chance that the Pelicans are a team that jumps on that, knowing that free agency is not really a viable option for them, and the current team in its state is not a team that's going to win a championship.
All right, Jess?
I think it's time that they move on from either Brandon Ingram or CJ McCollum or both. I mean, Brandon Ingram is supposed to be the franchise guy when Zion Williamson is out, and he's put up 12 points a game so far in this series. Yep. He's not scored more than 20 once in the playoffs this year, and this is supposed to be the guy who's like the next Kevin Durant. I know that he's not that, but like he's praised for being a scorer, and you can't give me 20 once in like 3-4 games so far, including the play-in. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing watching him play. He's shooting like 6 of 17 from the field for 12 points and just like getting clamped up. And CJ McCollum as well. Unfortunately, they just extended CJ McCollum to a 2-year, $64 million, completely fully guaranteed deal. So they're paying him $33 million or whatever a year, whether they like it or not. So I think that you have to try to trade one of them. I mean, CJ's 32. So he's the older one, and I would say you go with that. I mean, Ingram is still 26, so he's not that old yet, and you still have time. I mean, he's only crazy. He's actually only a year older than Herb Jones, which is hard to believe. But, I mean, they're a similar age. But you've got so much great young talent on the roster. Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, that's your two forwards. You can move on from Brandon Ingram and find somebody else. You can move on from CJ McCollum. And please, for the love of God, get a point guard on this team. There is not a point guard on this team. You have 3 guys who are all shooting guards. It's like the Suns. This is like the Suns, but in a smaller market. You know, they have a lot of great big name players who can score a lot of points, but no one to actually facilitate an offense. And it just all revolves around Zion. And unfortunately, the weight of that is just too much on his shoulders or his hamstring for this year. So unfortunately, but I think you got to move on from those two. Zion had a great year. Herb, Trey, great years. Jordan Hawkins, Dyson Daniels, great years. Move on from CJ and Brandon. It's just time.
Yeah, I think the answer is there's one of 2 options. One is you run it back with the guys you have. You go into the tax and you pay somebody or trade for a center because that's younger and more athletic and allows everybody else to kind of do their job on defense and have somebody that can rim protect. The second option, I agree wholeheartedly with you, Jesse, and it's not CJ. I don't think we can get enough back for CJ as we can for Brandon Ingram. This has been a horrendous, he's in the Lou Dort sphere, and he's not going to get out of it anytime soon. Definitely not tonight. I thought they did a bad job of not going to Trey Murphy as a second scoring option, not just as a 3-point shooter in this series because they needed that second option. But it's very clear who the alpha on this team is, and it's Zion. It's not Brandon Ingram. So I think this is the year to move on from Brandon Ingram through a trade, get a point guard, get some sort of replacement, use all the assets that Jack talked about to bring somebody big name in. I don't know if that's Booker. I don't know if that's somebody else. And I know Booker would not come here willingly through free agency, but through a trade, there might be an option. You need to use, and I think it's going to be interesting because Oklahoma City has a lot of assets as well. And I'd be shocked if they don't use them this offseason to beef up their 5. And let everybody else kind of cook around it because they have, issues in rebounding as well. But those 2 teams might be fighting over whoever the best options are when it comes to the center position. So should be interesting. Let's move on to Cleveland Cavs. What's next for them? They have not lost their series yet, and this has been a bonkers series. If you're the home team, you're winning by 20, in some cases by 40. So any moves for the Cavs next year, Jesse?
I guess we'll have to wait and see how this series shakes out. If for some reason the Cavs just flip a switch and dominate the next 2 games and get out of there, I think that they can, feel good and go into the next round. I mean, you don't feel great because I believe that they're playing Boston no matter what of how the seeding shakes up. So, I mean, that'll be a fun series for them. Maybe they can take a game, maybe 2 off of Boston, but I highly doubt it. But, I mean, Cleveland's a good defensive team. Jared Allen, Evan Mobley down low is a great duo. And theoretically, this team on paper is so good. It makes 0 sense that team can lose by an average margin of 30 to the Magic, knowing how good their defense is. But honestly, it's the offense that's looked dead the last few games. I mean, the defense hasn't exactly been the problem. I mean, Franz did give him like 34 last game, but you need some better offense. It starts at the forward. I mean, they're running like Karis LeVert, Isaac Okoro, and like whoever else wants to play the wing for them. And it's not great. Donovan Mitchell is obviously a phenomenal scorer. And Darius Garland, I have not heard enough media talking about where has he been in this series or in general this season. So I think overall the roster on paper seems like it should be great. And I mean, they were like the 3rd seed in the East for most of the season and then, dropped down to 4. So overall, it's a great team, but maybe they go out, try to make a splash for one of the better forwards. Maybe they try their luck with Tobias Harris or Gordon Hayward or James Harden or something like that. Like, I don't know who they want to go after, but you need to make a splash. You need to get another guy on this team who's going to give you something on offense, but I don't really know what they have to get that in return.
Yeah.
All right, Jack, Cavs, what's next?
I mean, I think at the core of what their offseason is going to be is you have to operate under the assumption that after next season, Donovan Mitchell is out of there. And he will be gone like the wind if you let him hit free agency. So I think you have to at least entertain trading him. I mean, that has to be something that crosses your mind to not lose him for nothing. And if that is the route they end up going this offseason, we see a Donovan Mitchell trade, obviously it sort of depends on what they're able to get back. But what you're left with, just not knowing what the package in return would be, you're left with Darius Garland, who has disappeared in this playoff run. And honestly, overall, this season hasn't been that great. And Evan Mobley is a guy who obviously is an unbelievable defensive player. But if you're losing Donovan Mitchell, if you want to stay a really competitive team, you need to step up offensively from Evan Mobley. And that is not going to be something that's guaranteed. But that's going to be something that they're going to have to really hope for. And other than that, you're put in a bit of an awkward spot without Donovan Mitchell, where you could really use a superstar. You still have a good core to build around with Garland, Mobley, Jared Allen. I mean, these are solid players and whatever you would get in return for Mitchell. But there is obviously a gaping hole of a superstar in that lineup if you lose Mitchell. So I don't know what direction they would have to go with, but there is a Donovan Mitchell decision to be made absolutely this summer. And I think whatever that package in return would be would have to help them decide what direction to go from there.
All right, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting thinking that Donovan Mitchell could be traded in the next year. It's kind of funny thinking back because Donovan Mitchell was in attendance for LeBron's The Decision press conference. He was in attendance for that, for LeBron leaving Cleveland. And now Donovan Mitchell, if he is not traded, will likely leave Cleveland just like LeBron. So I think that is pretty funny. I think if I'm the Cavs and I'm trying to run it back at least one more year, see if we can make things work with Mitchell, I'm definitely looking at forward and center depth a little bit on the free agency market. I'm looking at guys that we can sign on for, nothing too crazy, like Doug McDermott's available. Definitely looking at Nick Batum. Definitely looking at Kyle Anderson. Like, they just need a little bit more, some more role players, some more veteran help in that locker room. I feel like this team has been in going on the right direction in the post LeBron era. Like, they've been doing somewhat well. But if Mitchell's not going to stay, you need to make that trade and you need to get a return for him that, and I mean like a good return, get some draft picks, get, things that you can use in your future to potentially build a new core for this Cavs team, because it seems like the current core is not going to be winning a championship for you.
Yeah, I think the time is now to trade him. I agree with Jack. I don't think he wants to be around, will be around. And if I'm them, I'm trading him to a West team, just getting him out of the conference altogether. And that could swing the West depending on who's able to get Donovan Mitchell. So there's a lot of interesting possibilities, teams with a lot of draft picks, if Cleveland's okay with, kind of taking a step back a little bit and rebuilding through the draft. Or, you go to a team like the Suns and think, is there a way to do, player for player or player for player plus draft picks? So, big offseason for the Cavs and many teams, and we'll continue to add to this list as we go. Whoever loses the Mavs-Clippers series will be an interesting conversation maybe next week when we get to this point. All right, Jack, over to you. A little trivia.
All right. So, can you name the player with the most points in a playoff game for each NBA team, Eastern Conference edition? And we will start with the Atlanta Hawks.
Trae Young. Got to be Trae Young.
Not
I
Trae
think-
Young.
Oh.
There are two options here, by the way.
Dominique.
Dominique Wilkins is one of them. You guys get the other one?
So weird.
Oh, there's a tie, you're
Yeah, there's a
saying.
tie. There's a
Is it
tie.
weird I was going to guess Bob Pettit? It's not Bob Pettit.
It is Bob Pettit. It is. Dominique Wilkins
the
is
St.
Bob
Louis
Wait, was
Pettit.
that the
Hawks.
St. Louis Hawks?
With the
Bob
St. Louis
Pettit.
Hawks. Yep, they both had 50 points in a playoff game. And
NBA 2K legend Bob Pettit.
LSU legend Bob Pettit. Thank you very much.
There you go. All right. The Boston Celtics.
That's probably Larry Bird.
Not Larry Bird.
I was going to say Jason Tatum.
Nope.
Paul Pierce.
Nope.
Bill Russell.
Not Bill Russell.
Kevin Garnett.
Nope.
Ray Allen.
Wow.
Not Ray Allen.
Oh, Dave Cowens.
Bob
Not
Bob
Dave
Cousy.
Not Bob Cousy.
Wow.
Kevin
Kevin
McHale.
McHale? Is it something weird? Kevin
Not,
McHale?
not
Robert,
Kevin McHale.
Robert Parrish.
Oh,
No.
Isaiah Thomas.
Not Isaiah Thomas.
It's
That
not
I
the
know.
53?
Not Isaiah Thomas.
It's not the 50. How many?
Jalen
points?
Brown.
No, not Jalen Brown.
Wait,
Think
wait.
older.
Isaiah Thomas scored 53. How many is this?
It is 54.
Wow.
Hmm.
Can we get a decade?
The 70s.
Oh, great.
You've named
Oh,
just
Hondo.
about-
Hondo.
There you go. Hondo. John Havlicek. There you go.
That was like the last Celtic I had. If it wasn't that, I had no idea.
Wow.
Oh, man. All right. The Brooklyn Nets.
KD.
You're right. Kevin Durant, 2021. Okay. Charlotte Hornets.
Kemba?
Not
Baron
Kemba.
Davis.
Nope.
Grandmama? Larry Johnson?
Nope.
Oh, Alonzo.
Not Alonzo. You're
This
thinking
must
the
have
right
been-
era,
must have
though.
been Not in my lifetime because they've never been in the playoffs.
I know.
Grant Hill? Was he a Hornet? No.
I don't think he was a Hornet.
I don't know why I was thinking of him in a teal jersey.
The Pistons.
What
jersey.
about Father
Oh, it
Curry?
was that ugly Pistons jersey.
Del
What about
Curry.
Del?
No,
What about
not
Dell?
Del Curry. Not Del Curry.
It's
Does
MJ.
this include New Orleans Hornets or
No.
No. So this is like the current Charlotte Hornets, and then like the old Charlotte Hornets.
Okay.
But not the New Orleans Hornets.
Yeah, the New Orleans Hornets counts as the Pelicans' history
Yeah.
okay?
since 02. Yeah.
Baron Davis?
Oh, David
Not
Wesley.
Baron Davis. No.
Are you saying the Alonzo era? Was
Oh, wait. No,
Nick.
I lost. I don't know.
no. Nick Anderson was a Magic.
Glenn Rice was he?
Glenn Rice.
There you,
Well
there
done.
you go. Holy
Yeah.
hell.
1997. Glenn Rice.
Good stuff.
All right. The Chicago Bulls.
Jordan.
Yep, Michael Jordan, and also the all-time single-game playoff record is Michael Jordan's with 63. All right, the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Bron.
Braun, 51 in the NBA Finals
Wow.
was LeBron.
Yep.
All right, Detroit Pistons, and I will preface this. This is probably the hardest one on the list.
Hamilton.
No,
Lambeer.
no, I'll tell you, it was in
Whoa,
19.
when did Bill
Lambeer.
I'm just saying, it was in 1968.
Oh Lord, yeah. No, I was just throwing out like a more
Wait,
like wild
this-
guess. This is
so-
ugh.
What'd you say?
Was it Detroit Pistons still? Were they Detroit? Or have they always been?
I believe they were
I
still.
think they've always been Detroit
Yeah.
Pistons.
they were for
McAdoo? I don't know.
No.
68 is tough
Yeah.
because that's not a Pistons. Nobody knew about the Pistons
I
really.
have no guess for that.
Me either.
Nothing.
Yeah. All right. Should I just give it to you?
Give it to us.
It
It was Dave Bing.
I
Oh,
was never going to say those two words.
I've never heard that name before.
I've
I've heard the name.
I've heard that name before, but I didn't think he'd still be leading that franchise.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, it's a lower total. He only had 44, and that's the most anyone has ever had. For the
Well,
franchise.
since the early 2000s, they haven't had many chances to get a higher number. So
Yeah.
Well, in their early 2000s championships weren't like score. They were winning 74-69. I mean, it was such a defensive struggle.
Yeah. All right. The Indiana Pacers.
Reggie
Reg.
Miller.
Yep. Reggie
Not
Miller. And he
T.J. Warren?
actually
TJ
no.
Warren.
Reggie Miller, and Reggie Miller did it twice actually. He did it in 2000 and in 2001.
How many points?
Actually, only 41, so not that high.
Wait, are we not
Uh-oh.
counting the bubble?
T.J. Warren, I don't think he had 50. Was it in a playoff game or was it in like the pre-playoff?
I
Because
don't know.
it doesn't have him on there.
The answer is no. We're not counting the bubble ever.
It doesn't list him on there.
I don't know if it was okay. His career high in points is 53, but it might have been in like the 8 games of the bubble. leading
Right,
up to
that's
the
what I
playoffs.
think.
Yeah.
No, I'm looking right now. It was against the 76ers. It was before the playoff series against the
Yeah.
Miami Heat. They dropped 53, so it is not the record.
So it doesn't
The
actually.
the most he had in the playoff series against the Heat was 23 in
All
Game
right.
4.
Bubble
All right.
Warren, what a time to be
Yeah,
alive.
what a time. All right, the Miami Heat.
Jimmy?
Jimmy Butler. Yep. Actually, last season he had 56.
Yeah. I remember getting a bunch of comments on the last Heat 50-point scorer, and everyone was like, Jimmy Butler did it. And I was like, that's because
No.
it was in the playoffs. It doesn't count for the regular season.
Oh man. All right, the Milwaukee Bucks.
Giannis?
Giannis.
Yep, Giannis, 50 in 2021.
Game
The
six.
New York Knicks.
Jalen Brunson.
Jalen Brunson last night, 47. All right, the Orlando Magic, and this is another one where there's 2 guys that are tied.
Shaq.
Shaq.
Not Shaq.
Tracy?
Tracy's one
Hardaway.
of them. Not Penny,
Penny
Hardaway.
Hardaway.
No.
Oh, Nick Anderson.
No.
Nick Anderson.
I was so confident in that.
It's a good guess.
Is that Grant Hill?
Not Grant Hill.
Dwight Howard.
Dwight Howard. There you go. So Dwight Howard and Tracy McGrady are tied with 46.
Wow.
All right. The 76ers.
Allen Iverson.
Allen Iverson. Nicely done. 55 in 2003.
Take that,
All right.
JoJo.
All right. Toronto Raptors.
Kawhi.
Kawhi Leonard.
Not Kawhi.
Vince.
Vince Carter. 50 in 2001. And then last but not least, the Washington Wizards.
Bob McAdoo.
I don't think
Wes
Bradley Beal?
Unseld.
Oh, sorry. Wes,
Not
I'm thinking.
Wes Unseld.
I was thinking of Wes Unseld. Bradley Beal.
Not Bradley Beal.
John Wall.
Not John Wall.
Okay. I'm out of guess.
Westbrook.
Not Westbrook.
No,
Gilbert
it's
Arenas.
what's his name?
You mean
Emeka
Gilbert.
Okafor?
No, not Gilbert Arenas. What?
Okafor?
No.
Michael Jordan.
Good guess, but no.
What's his name? How is it? Like an old guy?
Yeah, old. Wes Unseld was the best guess.
Is it a Washington Bullet or is it?
Well, the Bullets were like
Yeah,
until the late
yeah,
90s. So
I'm almost 100%.
That's old, Brian. That newsflash. That's old.
Yeah.
no. What I'm saying is, it's not like we're talking about the 60s necessarily.
Yeah, no, he was definitely a Washington Bullet.
Manute Bull.
Not Manute Bol.
It's a good guess. Muggsy Bogues.
Moses
Not
Malone.
Muggsy. I confused this guy with Elvin Hayes. Oh my God, I'm dumb. I just did it.
Is it Elvin Hayes?
It is Elvin Hayes.
Let's go.
I confuse Elvin with Elvin
I
Hayes. Too.
confuse Elvin with Wes Unseld all the time, and I literally just did it as I
Did it
was
on air. Let's go.
so funny.
That's beautiful.
We'll cut that to just me saying, "Is it Elvin Hayes?" Let's
Yeah.
go.
That's really funny.
All right, I got the next one coming up. So, similar vein of thought. So, can you name the 10 players with the most points in a single playoff run? So, that is all games played in the playoffs. Most of, if not all of these guys reached the finals or at least played, 20 games in their series. So, a couple deep series, top 10 names. A couple guys are on here more than once, but we're just counting them as one. So, their highest number counts for their top place.
All right.
All right.
Let's we'll go Jack, Zach, Brian. For
All
guessing.
right. Well, I'll take Michael Jordan.
Number 1, 759 points in the 92 playoffs.
Crazy. All right. Well, give me LeBron.
Number 2, with 748 points. Can you tell me what season?
I'm going to say 2016.
No.
Ooh, okay.
2018.
2018 was when he had to carry those Cavs a lot more. And yeah, he scored so many, 34 points a game.
Why did I not guess 2018?
That was the same year as his 51-point game that we just talked about.
Yep.
Right.
All right. Top 2 answers. Brian?
Kobe.
Kobe Bryant comes in at number 7 in 2008, 2009 with 695 points.
Ooh.
All right. I was about to guess Wilt Chamberlain, but I don't know that his runs would have been long enough because the league was so much smaller.
Yeah.
Wilt's not anywhere close to the top 20, actually.
Yeah, right. So, So, okay.
He was only playing like 16 games.
Yeah.
Yeah, stocking.
Yeah.
Let me get Larry Bird.
Larry Bird's the first guy off the list
Oh.
with 632 points in 1984.
That's brutal. All right. I'm going to guess Allen Iverson.
Number 5 with 723 points in 2000, 2001.
Jokic.
No, Nikola Jokic not up there.
All right. How about Kevin Durant?
Kevin Durant is number 15. He is pretty far down. In 2018, that was his best, 608 points.
All right. Give me your guy, Jesse, Kawhi Leonard.
Number 3 all-time, Kawhi Leonard, 732 points in our finals run. My king.
Okay.
Giannis.
Giannis, number 10, with 634 points in their finals run, 2021.
Ooh, how about Dirk?
Ooh, Dirk is number 13. Very close, 620 points in 06.
Give me Dwight Howard.
No.
That one finals run, I thought it could have been.
What about Kareem?
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, not on the list.
Dwayne Wade.
Dwayne Wade, in what year?
In what year did they win the championship? Why am I blanking? The whatever year they won the championship without LeBron.
06?
Was it 06?
06. Dwayne Wade, 06, correct, is number 8, 654 points.
Let me guess his teammate, Shaq.
Shaq, 2000, is number 6, 707 points. So you guys are missing number 4 and number 9.
Olajuwon.
Hakeem, number 4 in 1994, scored a 725 points in the 94 playoffs.
All right.
That's number 4. So you're just missing
Wow.
number 9 now. This guy scored 638 points in the playoffs.
All right. It can't be Tim Duncan. I don't think he would have scored enough. Let me think. Who else has made finals? Karl Malone.
No, Karl Malone, not on the
Good
list.
guess.
Definitely a stretch here, but let me guess Jimmy Butler.
No, Jimmy Butler, not on the list.
Trying to think of like alphas for their teams that lost or that maybe didn't show up a lot. Wouldn't have
That's
been
a good vein of
Stockton.
thought.
What about Sean Kemp?
No,
No.
Charles
Well,
Barkley.
he was a high scorer.
Chuck Chuck in 1993 had 638 points in the playoffs. Good enough for number 9. Was it the large mound of rebound? The round mound of
the
rebound?
round mound.
The round mound of rebound.
He's more of a large mound, but yeah. The round mound of rebound is number 9. Charles Barkley. Well done. Just off the list was Steph Curry. In 2019, funny enough, the run against the Raptors, he was number 12. And right behind him, Jason Tatum from 2 years ago.
All right.
Well done. All right. Last question of the NBA day.
Yeah, this is an interesting
not
one.
NBA,
Zach should really be the one asking this question because he's
Okay.
inspired this question.
Then
If you had to, go for it. Go for
if
it.
you want me to ask it, I'll ask it. That's fine.
I would love. Yes, I need your doom and gloom on this.
All right. For each of you guys, If you had to abolish one team from your hometown, which would it be? If you had to get rid of one pro sports team from your town, who would it be?
Clippers. Next question.
That you cheer for. That you cheer for.
Can I so quickly say the Maple Leafs and just move on? I mean, we have so many good hockey players in Canada. It would not be hard to field another team. And this team, we've been losers since 1967. Okay, this franchise needs a reset. Nobody would notice if they were gone. All right, so new hockey team in Toronto. We got the demand for it. Next, please get rid of them.
You can't get rid of an original 6 team, by the way.
You can when they haven't won in 80 years almost. Like, come on, this is insane. The last time they won, none of us or even most of our
The
parents.
60s were not 80 years ago, by the way.
Whatever, it's going to be 80 years by the next time they have
Maybe so. Maybe so.
Look, when you haven't won in that long, it's been exactly 67 years. Oh, look at that. Losers since 67, and it's been 67 years. They should bake a cake or something. I don't know. It's ridiculous. And get rid of the Maple Leafs tomorrow. Yesterday, actually, please.
All right, Jack, you go.
I mean, I would just re-abolish football in LA. I mean, neither team fields a good fan base. And I guess that's easy for me to say because I'm not an LA football fan. My team's not in LA. And I couldn't pick the Lakers or the Dodgers. I mean, those two teams are the lifeblood of the city. So you can't get rid of either of those two. So yeah, I just get rid of the NFL and LA. We can kill two birds with one stone because neither of them field a good enough fan base.
Mm-hmm.
This question is patently unfair to me because I only have 2 professional level teams in my city, and I don't wish to choose either of them. However, if we had an NHL team and an MLB team, I would definitely eliminate the NHL team. I like watching the NHL. I used to like watching it a lot more. There's no specific reason why I don't watch it as much anymore. It's not like it's gotten any less exciting, but that would be the team I would get rid of. There is a semi-pro soccer team in New Orleans called the Jesters. I'd love to get rid of them, but that would be my only option. I'm not choosing between the Saints and Pelicans.
Yeah, I mean, for me, even though the Phillies are historically the team with the most losses in professional sports history, they're actually safe to me because they have shown signs of success throughout like their existence, especially in the past half century or so. They've actually had some success. It's hard to say the same for the Flyers and the Sixers, so it comes down between them. And I'm leaning towards eliminating the Sixers, especially because just looking at this team, their most valuable player of all time is still Dolph Schayes in terms of win shares. Like, that is pathetic that Dolph Schayes is still the most valuable player in franchise history. Both clubs
have Tribe, though. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
both clubs have claimed 2 championships under their current names, with the Sixers' last one being in '83 and the Flyers' last one being in they had back-to-back in '74 and '75. But, I mean, at least the Flyers have had someone that people couldn't cheer for throughout the decades. You know, I mean, especially for my generation, Claude Giroux is the reason why hockey is still so popular. But I think the biggest reason why I'm eliminating the Sixers is because right now they play in a hockey stadium. They don't play in a basketball stadium. They play in a hockey stadium. Let's be honest here. And ownership is trying to screw over the city by building their own stadium that would disrupt local neighborhoods as well. The ownership sucks. The team has not been good historically. I'm all for getting rid of the Sixers if I had to pick.
Hey,
Okay.
Wow.
That's all from me.
All right. So that's what it is. Thanks.
Right.
Let's move on. We're going to do a draft off. We're moving to the NFL. Okay. It's draft week just ended. So we're going to do a draft off. Rookies only, 2024 fantasy value. So we have our typical positions: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and flex. And we're doing it based on 2024 fantasy value. So this year's fantasy value. I have the first pick, followed by Zach, Jesse, and Jack. So I'm not going to make this too difficult. I don't love this quarterback situation, but I'm taking Marvin Harrison Jr. first overall. It's just I think he's the most NFL ready, despite the fact that his quarterback can't see over the line. I feel like he's going to have a big year.
Mm-hmm.
Good pick.
Yeah. With the second pick, you took who I would have taken first overall, and I think at this point, looking at the rest of the field, I'm getting the top quarterback who will get the most playing time guaranteed. Give me Caleb Williams.
Well, that's just no fun.
Sorry, no bans in this draft, so I can take the top guy.
I don't know why you're salty about that. You don't even like Tom Brady. So
I like him to a degree.
all right, Drake May's not playing. Michael Penix, barring injuries, not playing. JJ McCarthy could be fighting for a spot. So I think I'm going to have to go with the only other guy here who's guaranteed to get any playing time, and he's the guy that I wanted in the draft. Give me Jaden Daniels. I'm going to take him and put him at my quarterback. Maybe we'll flex him to wide receiver if the whole quarterback thing doesn't work out. Just kidding, but yeah,
He can catch.
All right. So I've got back-to-back picks here, and the quarterback situation is somewhat brutal because most of these guys won't be playing. And the running back situation in the entire draft class is brutal. So, you know what? I'm just going to stack my receiver and my flex. Let me get Malik Neighbors, and let me get Rome Odunze. And I am thrilled with that.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's good stuff.
All right. Ooh, interesting. Okay. Looking at the rest of the receivers here now. So most of the early guys are gone. I'm going to go to my flex spot. Give me Brock Bowers.
Solid.
Nice.
There's lots of receivers left, and I'll get one eventually.
Yeah, I mean, Jack just kind of sucked up a lot of the receiver value here. And this might sound like a reach, but if we're talking fantasy value day one, there's no other receiver left that I'm probably taking over Xavier Worthy here with Patrick Mahomes throwing to him.
Yeah.
Great pick. That's who I was circling, looking at this wide receiver list. Okay, so I get 2 picks. I'm not going to worry about quarterback right now because, the top 2 guys are gone. I'll take whatever comes left after Jack picks. So I need a running back and I need a flex. So I'm going to go with a little under the radar guy as my second wide out, and I'm going to go Brian Thomas Jr. I love that guy. I thought he was great at LSU. I think he's going to be a little bit of a surprise, and I think he's going to have a lot of value this first year. And then I have to go running back. Running back is so tough, and I hate to go back to another Arizona guy, but I'm just going to put my faith in Trey Benson and hope for the best there.
Very interesting. So I'm left with either a running back or a tight end. And honestly, I'm looking running back just because it is pretty thin. There's no one that really stands out. It's kind of a shot in the dark, but I think there's a good chance that Jonathan Brooks is going to get a lot of playing time. He was the first running back taken for a reason. Give me him here in round 3.
Yeah, that's who I was looking at. Yikes. Okay, this is gonna be this is interesting. Man, the running back situation is bad. It's very bad. There's not a whole lot going on there. So I think I might have to just say screw that and look at my receiver for now. Looking here, I would have loved if Xavier Worthy had somehow fallen, but that was not going to happen. I'm gonna go. You know what? I'm gonna go with the guy who they drafted to be the replacement of their former wide receiver 1. Give me Keon Coleman going to the Buffalo Bills. He's a guy, I think he's going to get a whole lot of targets his way this season. And Gabe Davis has gone too. I mean, he could be the wide receiver 1 week 1.
It's a good pick.
Okay, so I need a quarterback and I need a running back, and neither position is pretty. So I'll start with the quarterback because I think that's slightly less ugly. Drake May is by far the best one on the board, but I don't think he's going to play very much this year. Same could be said about JJ McCarthy. You could absolutely say that about Michael Penix. That guy's not sniffing the field this year. The only one that I think is going to play is Bo Nix, and I think Bo Nix is going to play a lot. And I have faith in his ability to come in and be a solid day 1 starter. I'm going to go with Bo Nix here. I think that's the best option left on the board. And then for my running back, it's pretty gross. There's Blake Corum. He was really good in college. That's an option, but he's going to be stuck behind Kyron Williams with the Rams. There's Marshawn Lloyd, who is also really good at USC, but he's stuck behind Josh Jacobs in Green Bay. Or there is a Wisconsin Badger, one of my favorite Wisconsin Badgers, and a guy that sort of will mark my time in college there, in Braylon Allen, who is stuck behind Breece Hall with the Jets. But if I'm picking behind 3 guys that are stuck behind a really good running back, you know I'm taking the Badgers. So let me get Braylon Allen. He's a bulldozer of a running back, and I think he's going to get some good goal line work this year and actually might frustrate some Breece Hall owners because he is an absolute machine at the goal line.
All right. Well, this is ugly. This is ugly. The amount of running backs left is disgusting. But man, if I had to choose one, I'm just going to go with the guy who was picked the highest. Give me Blake Corum out of Michigan. I know he's behind Kyron Williams, but he could always get hurt and have a clear path to a number 1 bell cow type role. We've seen the Rams use multiple running backs in seasons with Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson getting some work at some point. So there's, I'm not going to pretend like I know some 4th, 5th round sleeper. Just give me Blake Corum. Easy pick.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it's rough when you get to these later rounds. Also, Jack, I think your Bo Nix pick was the best pick you could have made for quarterback. I agree with that pick. It is rough with these last couple picks. And while I could go with Sketch's draft pick in Cade Stover, tight end from Ohio State, I'm going to get another wide receiver to fill out my flex position. Give me Ricky Pearsall, the Brandon Ayuk replacement.
Assuming Brandon Ayuk is leaving.
Right.
Assuming, but I think there's going to be room in that offense for Pearsall to get touches. So I'm okay taking him as a 4th pick flyer. 4th round flyer.
All right. Well, I'm down to quarterback, and so my options are Drake May and J.J. McCarthy and Spencer Rattler. I'll just throw him in there because I thought it was an awesome pick in the 5th round. And you know, there's a higher than 0% chance that Derek Carr is going to suck. So I'm not going to take him here, though. I can get him later. I'm going to go with Drake May, and here's the deal: I didn't love him for the Patriots. I'm not too enthralled with his potential in the NFL. I think he'll be okay, but not unbelievable. But I do think he's going to play this year, and I do think he's going to play at least 10 games. I just don't know why you would pick somebody that high without throwing him out there. I don't think Brissett is going to.
He's not playing 10 games this year. It's not going to happen.
It's easy for you to say, but I think you have just as much intel as I do, and so I believe that he gets.
Yeah, and all of that intel points that they're not playing him this season. Or at least for the first half.
I'm going to give him a chance, and I'm going to pick him because I'm not picking McCarthy.
Brian's getting a big old goose egg at his quarterback. I'm not going to prevent you. I'm just telling you.
Okay, I can't wait till he plays in week 6.
All right, well, let us know who won this draft. Let us know who won.
I think I cooked, to be honest.
I feel like Jesse, you definitely cooked. Jack, your first 2 picks cooked, but it got tough later on. I think I cooked a little bit, and then we have Drake May.
Yeah, I honestly, Zach would have been the easy winner if he took Brian Thomas over Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, no, I was thinking more fantasy value.
No, I respect it because Brian Thomas is going to be behind Gabe Davis and Christian Kirk, but Brian Thomas is miles better than Gabe Davis already, and he will take Christian Kirk's job. There's no way you can say that.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the relative strength of both wide receiver rooms, and I think like Xavier Worthy has more opportunities to be like that wide receiver 2 in the Chiefs room. And I know Brian Thomas could easily be wide receiver 2 as well, but you got a better quarterback throwing to Worthy. So I think Worthy's still a good pick.
I don't know. I think
Worthy's a good pick. I probably would have picked him if he was available, but I do think Brian Thomas will very quickly prove he's the best wide receiver in Jacksonville.
Probably.
He'll end up being the number 1 option. So, all right, last question here. Which team in each division had the best draft? So we're going to go division by division. Just give me your team. We'll start with the NFC North.
Ooh, I'm gonna say the Lions taking Terry and Arnold 24th. I think that was by far the best pick, maybe even of the entire first round. But great spot to get such a good corner, the Lions.
Yeah, it's tough. To me, it's obviously between the Bears and the Lions, but I'm actually going to lean the Lions on this one. I'm with you, Jesse. Getting Arnold that late in the first round is huge. And, while the Bears did get their quarterback of the future, everything's still very unproven. We could both definitely be proven wrong. Maybe Caleb Williams is a generational talent or something, but immediately after the draft, I like what the Lions did a lot. I'm going to say they had the best draft.
I don't know. I'm actually going to take the Vikings. I think the Bears did really well, obviously, but I think the fact that they were basically able to stick and pick and still get McCarthy rather than having to trade up to get him, and then you get Dallas Turner later in the first round, I think that was a fantastic way of navigating the draft, so I'm going to pick them.
Everybody's wrong. It's the Bears. 2 picks in the top 10. I'm going with the Bears. AFC North, Jesse.
Ooh, AFC North. Is this the best just overall the entire draft?
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. I'm gonna say it was the Steelers. I don't want to, but I think the Steelers drafted well. I think their first pick was safe as well. And I mean, I don't know too much more about the later round picks that the Steelers ended up taking, but I think that they took a safe need. It would have been nice to see them go maybe receiver earlier, but I mean, they did get Roman Wilson in the 3rd round. And then they just kind of loaded up their O-line and their D-line. So I think overall, Steelers, very solid draft, had, 4 picks in the first 3 rounds. So they were loading up. So I like the Steelers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually with you. I think Pittsburgh, especially the first 3 rounds, they nailed those first 4 selections. They addressed their 3 biggest needs with their first 3 picks: offensive tackle, center, and wide receiver. They got someone for each of those positions. And then Peyton Wilson at the end of the 3rd round is a great prospective linebacker joining an already great Steelers defense. Maybe, I don't know too much about these late round flyers, but those first 4 picks solidify my pick as the Steelers having the best draft.
Yeah, I may be a little biased, but I would take the Steelers also. I think they played it safe. They drafted at positions of need and got really good players at those positions. I don't think there's any way that you can fault them for that. I think they did really well.
I think it's Pittsburgh easily. 3 offensive linemen in the first 5 rounds, and just building up that base, going to play some Steeler football.
Mm-hmm. Also, Zach Frazier, absolute dog. Great pick.
All right. NFC West, Jesse.
NFC West. Ooh, that's tough. I'm gonna say the Seahawks. I think getting Byron Murphy at 16 to start it off was a great pick. I mean, they were the first team to take a defensive player in the draft, and I just think that was definitely a need for them on the D line. So I mean, I think that overall, I mean, the Seahawks, they're a very young team, and where did that noise come from? Oh, sorry, there was a tab on my screen playing something. I think overall, I mean, they got Byron Murphy, and then they didn't have any second round pick, but then a couple later rounds, just a lot of defense in this draft. And I think overall, that was a great pick for them to start it off.
I'm going to go with the team that did have a second round pick. I'm going to go with the Arizona Cardinals. I think they had an absolutely stellar draft. I mean, they used their 2 first round picks to address, getting Marvin Harrison Jr. 4th overall was the right move, not trading out of that pick, getting the best available receiver. And then Darius Robinson at the end of the first round, he projects to be a pretty solid edge rusher. Max Melton in the 2nd round is a fantastic pick. The cornerback out of Rutgers had a really good season. I like Trey Benson in the 3rd round. And they have a lot of interesting prospects, later on in the draft. I think the Cardinals crushed it. I'm saying they had the best draft.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Seahawks also. I like the Cardinals draft. Obviously, I love Marvin Harrison. I thought Darius Robinson was a bit of a reach in the first round pick. I thought he was going to be a late second kind of guy. But the Seahawks, I mean, Byron Murphy is an unbelievable fit for that team. Addresses a big need, and he is an absolute dog. To get him at 18 is phenomenal, or 16 is phenomenal. And I also really like Christian Haynes, who they took in the 3rd round as a guard out of UConn. So, yeah, I'll take Seattle.
Yeah, I'm going Arizona. I think everybody had like a B+ type draft, maybe A-, but in the end, you get Marvin Harrison Jr. So there you go. You win. AFC West, Jesse.
Ooh, AFC West. The Chiefs did get a great pick in Xavier Worthy, but I think I'm going to go with the Chargers. I really like the pick of Joe Alt. I think that a lot of people were giving them crap for not taking a receiver. And then, they did move up to get Lad McConkey at the start of the second round. But in the words of John Harbaugh, he said, everyone's saying we should draft a weapon. To him, offensive linemen are weapons. And I was like, that is a baller quote, first of all. But it's true. Like, having a great offensive lineman is more important than having a great wide receiver. Because how many kids do you know growing up that want to play wide receiver versus how many want to play offensive tackle or whatever? There's so many great wide receiver prospects coming in every single year. And they already have a few great young guys on the team. I mean, Josh Palmer is a solid young guy. Quentin Johnson had a bad first year, but he was a pretty high pick last year as well. And then Lad McConkey coming in. It'll be a young team, but Justin Herbert can't throw to anybody if he's not getting protected. And if he's getting hurt, it doesn't matter who you have at receiver. They had 2 stud wide receivers and it didn't work. So I think setting the tone with Joe Alt, and then, they took Brendan Rice as well in the last round, and then a couple corners in between. I just think overall it was a strong draft from the Chargers, and really taking Joe Alt instead of Malik Neighbors was the right pick.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was between the Chiefs and the Chargers, and I think the Chargers overall had the edge. Joe Alt at 5 was a pick that definitely surprised me, but it's a really good pick, getting some protection for Justin Herbert, and then getting Lad McConkey at in the middle of the second round. No, sorry, the beginning of the second round. I think is a really good pick. Try to get weapons around Justin Herbert. They also took Jerry Rice's son, Brendan Rice, late, and they also took another wide receiver, Cornelius Johnson from Michigan. They're giving Herbert a lot of prospective weapons. They also got a running back in the 6th round. Otherwise, they load up on defense. Just a very solid draft overall, and my favorite from the AFC West.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Joe Alt was the right pick. I think Lad McConkey is a phenomenal receiver. And yeah, I'm not going to say much more. I think you guys are absolutely right. The Chargers had a great draft.
Yeah, Alt could be a Hall of Famer. You get him, first tackle picked. And then I still think they can trade and get a receiver. There's plenty of receivers wanting to get out of their city. So I agree, Chargers. NFC South.
Ooh, NFC South. It definitely wasn't the Panthers because they did not have much to work with in this draft as is. I'm gonna say it was the Falcons. I know a lot of people don't think so, but I think that the Atlanta Falcons made a great pick with Michael Penix. And, I really think that in a few years, people are going to look back at that pick and say, I don't know why everyone thought that was the worst pick of the first round. I think he's a great quarterback. I think he's got a lot of skill. And I think coming into it, he can learn from Kirk Cousins, who's a great veteran quarterback, and he'll be great in 2-3 years. So apart from that, they didn't wow me with any of their other picks, but I just think it's not much competition here. So I'll give it to the Falcons.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Saints, actually. I like the offensive tackle pick in the first round. It's a boring pick, but it's a good pick. You can't really go wrong with that. Kool-Aid McKinstry falling to the second round was definitely a surprise for some people. He was one of the 4 corners taken back to back in that part of the second round. And I think the Saints got a really good player right there. Not in love with the Spencer Rattler pick, but you never know. Maybe he actually pans out a bit better. But, back end of the draft, you get some prospective defensive players. You get another offensive tackle in the 7th. You get Bub Means from Pittsburgh, as a weapon. Who knows how he'll do. But, there's not too much to it, but what they did was very solid, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go with the Buccaneers. I thought getting Graham Barton at pick 26 was unreal. I think he's a blue chip of a guard prospect, like in the same vein that Quentin Nelson was coming out. I think he's going to be great for them. I think he fills a need. I also love Chris Braswell in the 2nd round out of Bama, an edge rusher. Tyke Smith out of Georgia, safety in the 3rd round. I just think they did really good getting positions of value, getting good players at these positions in their spots, and highlighted by that Graham Barton pick, who I think is a stud. So I'm going to take the Bucs.
Yeah, I'm going to be a homer here and take the Saints. I agree with everything that Zach said. Huge tackle to start. Kool-Aid drops into the second. And by the way, Kool-Aid is the perfect nickname for somebody coming to the Saints. New Orleans is going to love that. And then I actually like the Spencer Rattler pick. I don't think he's going to end up being some perennial Pro Bowler or whatever, but you needed to add some legitimate depth there. And, I think he fell a little bit just because of the QB1 show. So we'll see how that pans out. AFC South.
Ooh, AFC South. I'm gonna give this one to the Colts. I really thought that they had a great draft. Laiatu Latu, he was actually the first defensive player taken off the board, edge, and I think that was a great pick for them. Definitely filled the need, and then also getting A.D. Mitchell, who I know is Jack's favorite wide receiver prospect in this draft, out of Texas in the second round, pretty late as well, was a great pick. And then they went O-line again, the next 2 picks, and then another receiver, and just overall, I mean, a very solid draft, I think, from the Colts. And Colts fans should have a lot to look forward to this season. They've got a very great up-and-coming roster. And I think that they filled a lot of their needs. Would have been nice for them to get maybe a better corner, but they obviously decided to go edge instead of corner at the time in the draft. So overall, I think, aside from getting a stud corner, you can walk away from this draft B+, A- maybe. But the Colts did a great job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the Colts did solid, but with what Houston had to work with, I think they did a really good job as well. I'm taking Houston as my best draft of that division. I mean, they addressed their need at cornerback in the second round, taking Kamari. I don't even know how to pronounce that last name. The cornerback from Georgia. I don't know, but but with their 2 second-round picks, they addressed cornerback and offensive tackle, 2 positions they really needed. Took some flyers on guys like Cade Stover and Jawar Jordan in later rounds. It's very solid. There's nothing really flashy about Houston's draft. I just think, they're filling in some needs. They're trying out some flyers. Pretty solid draft, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think anyone who knows me knows I would pick the Colts here. Their first round pick was Laiatu Latu, who was my favorite defensive player in the class. I think it's a great pick. A.D. Mitchell with the 20th pick in the second round is a steal. He was my wide receiver 5 in the class. To get him there is unreal. Their third round pick was an offensive tackle from the University of Pittsburgh. Thank you. And their fourth round pick was a center from Wisconsin who was actually my classmate. Shout out Tanner Bortolini. So I love what the Colts did in this draft. They catered it to me, and they're easily my pick.
All right, I'm going to stick with the Colts for all the reasons you've already said. And I know Jack's got to get out of here, so let's speed through the last 2. NFC East.
I got to give this one to the Philadelphia Eagles. Howie, I don't know how he always does it. He always cooks. Getting Quinion Mitchell at 22 without really having to do much, just unbelievable from Howie. They insert he can't keep getting away with this meme. I don't know how he does it every single year. But, I mean, getting Quinion Mitchell and then Cooper DeJean right after, I mean, great. And also, Aeneas Smith out of Texas A&M is one of the fastest wide receivers in this class, and he's got a lot of speed to him. So I really like that pick as well.
Mm-hmm. My pick, very obviously, the Eagles. I could gush about this draft for pretty much hours at this point. Love getting Mitchell in the first round. Love trading up for DeJean, who somehow fell all the way to pick 40, which is crazy. Really, like Jesse mentioned, getting Aeneas Smith in the 5th round is great. Bringing Jeremiah Trotter Jr., the son of Jeremiah Trotter, former Eagles linebacker, bringing him home was a really cool moment in the draft. And then also addressing center, addressing offensive guard. And on top of that, getting a 3rd, 4th, and 5th round pick in next year's draft is easily the Eagles.
Yeah, I agree. Quinion Mitchell was a fantastic pick. Cooper DeJean was a fantastic pick. And I also want to give a shout out to Johnny Wilson, who they took in the 6th round, who is a cheeseburger away from being a tight end, but is a really unique prospect as a wide receiver, really skilled, big-bodied wide receiver, really slow, but he there is a role for him in the NFL, and I'm really interested to see how the Eagles are going to use him because I think he could be really good there.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Philly just because of their first 2 picks. AFC East.
You already know what I'm going to say. Give it to the New England Patriots, all right? I didn't love the Drake May pick at first, but after watching the rest of the draft, wide receiver, O-line, wide receiver right after that. Javon Baker, I love him. I've watched his presser. He seems hilarious. Seems like he really attacks the football, a true X receiver that we've needed. We'll see about Jalen Polk, but overall, I think the Patriots did a great job very franchise-defining draft to go quarterback, receiver, offensive line to start it off. I'm very excited, and I feel like a lot of Pats fans are very, very excited from this draft.
Hey, if we're talking about funny press conferences, give me Keon Coleman and the Buffalo Bills. I really like what the Bills did in this draft overall, addressing needs at wide receiver and safety in their first 2 rounds. I definitely wish they drafted more for the offensive line, but they still addressed that need later in the draft. Overall, very solid, not super flashy overall, but they're filling needs. That's pretty much what you're trying to do in the draft anyways. I'm going to say Buffalo overall had the best draft.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Jets, actually. I think Olu Fashanu was a really good first-round pick to protect Aaron Rodgers. I really like Malachi Corley, who they took early in the 3rd round, a unique weapon at receiver. They got Jordan Travis to sit behind Aaron Rodgers is fun. And they got my boy Braylon Allen. So, yeah, I'm going with the Jets.
I'm going Pats. I love what they did early in the draft. And then in the 6th round, they get their quarterback of the future in Joe Milton. So I'm all in. It was a great pick. And go Pats. So that is it. We're going to run. We got Thursday show coming up where we're going to do trivia, games, and more. Thanks for hanging with us. And everybody have a good week.